My name is Marrett Laney-Johnson, and I am a middle school performing arts teacher. So I work at ACPA, the Arts and College Preparatory Academy in Columbus, Ohio. We have put on 5 different shows, well 4, it soon will be 5 different shows on this stage. Actually, some elements of the Catrone book that I firmly appreciated was if you are trying to be a director, you have got to read everything you can. This became incredibly important to me because I used to be a music major with an emphasis in opera and musical theater. So while I was choosing the shows for this particular year, I knew that I wanted to teach my children how to do plays of different styles, both contemporary and classical, how to start practicing the ideas of comedic timing. Pre-production that I had to deal with during the summer was I have to choose 5 shows that I'm going to do ahead of time and get them approved. So how that works is I get 1 rotation of students for 6 weeks, and then we switch. Each class that I receive puts on a show that normally is between 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I realized I wanted to be able to do a play, musical, and then they of course get to perform the show that they've been working on. But what I loved in the Catrone is how they addressed the 3 fundamentals of theater being conflict, emotion, and entertainment. So currently my students are putting on A Midsummer Night's Dream. Of course, it's a very truncated version of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And so the conflict in this, I've told them that there are 3, because we have the group of the Fae, we have the actors who are trying to put on a show and their stakes are high because this could be their golden ticket, they're performing for the Duke, it has to go well, and of course it does. And we have the lovers who are dealing with their own love triangles they have going on. The main forces at work here are the magic versus the mundane, and we also have conflict of forbidden love, that Hermia can't marry Lysander because she has been promised to Demetrius. The entertainment of this particular show comes, of course, in the plethora of obstacles that get in the way of the lovers, of the actors, and of the Fae. With regards to the emotion aspect of the 3 fundamentals of theater, this one has been a lot about arc with my kiddos, because it's very, very easy, even for adults, to play to the ending if they haven't been trained, playing just the emotion. Having my kids discover the arc, and playing myself last summer with the arc and how I wanted these moments to land was one of discovery for me. And of course, also when we got into the rehearsal process, that flexibility and being there for the actors and letting them play once I've given them my vision, it has been really, really rewarding. In chapter 2, Catrone discusses the role of the director, and really it should be roles of the director, and especially if you're also a teacher, your roles almost double, because you have developing the relationship with the place that you're able to put the production on. In our case, we are lucky enough to have this glorious theater. We are very lucky in that respect that we don't have to rent any place to make that happen. So the budgeting for this show was less tricky because, of course, William Shakespeare is in the public domain. We still wanted, though, to honor the playwright, because this is also an educational aspect. We wanted to make sure that even as a truncated version of Midsummer, it is still in Middle English, and figuring out that even though we are speaking part of this in verse, that it doesn't have to sound just da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It can actually have this inner life. What I loved about how Catrone clarified the roles of a director is he gave us 5 things to think about. 1 was artistic unification. This part of the process includes analyzing the play, making sure artistic unification was initially tricky within an educational context. The rough ideas of your design can be communicated to the production team so that nothing pollutes or muddles what your vision should be. But also knowing we can't use all 30 people's artistic ideas while keeping the whole process collaborative. I do try to give my students a say, like a choice. I've already come up with kind of how certain designs will look, and I try to give them 3 different ways that we could do it after we have read the script, as a class. Now, of course, I've already read and analyzed the script in pre-production. We can either do it as if it is in ancient Greece, as if it's Shakespeare, or we can do it as if it's kind of steampunk. So these are the choices that I gave them. We went with a more traditional route with these characters. They really enjoyed the idea of mixing the ancient Greek with the English because, and they even said this themselves, they said, but Miss LJ, back then in Shakespearean days, they wouldn't have had the ancient Greek gear, would they? And I said, that's a very good point. So we have our humans who look very, Middle English, Elizabethan costumes, whereas we have our Fae look a little bit Celtic, a little bit more Greek. I believe that we were able to do this in a way that it would make sense to the adults and in a way that would not distract too much from the children. That was one concern, was if we did steampunk, it might distract from the story itself because the kids would be too focused on the spectacle. 2 is representing the playwright. Now with William Shakespeare, he's obviously not here with us anymore. We didn't want to add modern day language. I felt like that would distract from his intention and what he wanted to do. And these kids who've never read Shakespeare before, who think it's all just like really heady and that there's nothing for them, what I've really enjoyed seeing is how these kids are seeing in his plays there are scandals, like what they like to call spilling the tea, dealing with Demetrius and Helena being exes and her being a woman scorned kind of a thing. And like this is all stuff that middle schoolers are currently dealing with. I felt like this show is really good to do for middle schoolers because nobody does drama like middle schoolers can. The third main function of a director was, of course, representing the audience. So in rehearsals, I'm there to see, does this moment work like I think it's going to? Are they taking too much time? Are they enjoying the funnies too much? I also really had to, pre-production-wise, organize our time. Because this is Shakespeare, this process these kids are supremely familiar with yet. We did an entire week before talking about the shape of a story, talking about how to analyze the plot, scene analysis, because I wanted them to have a really firm grasp on this before we switched from modern English into Middle English. Once they got the script, I wanted to allow enough time to discuss it. Of course, this was really hard to maintain focus and eliminate those distractions, right? That discussion element is very, very important, and with the limited time we have, I wanted to make sure we had ample time to discuss this show. And then finally, working with our performers. This is twofold here. Not only do I try to work with them as if professional setting, but first I have to teach them what that looks like. They're also learning backstage etiquette. We're just trying to get them into those habits of when you are backstage, you are not on stage, you are focused. And those expectations as a teacher that had to be placed ahead of time working with middle schoolers as your performers. And so that has been very rewarding, seeing some of those kids already starting to pick up that responsibility.